I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
Yo, what's good, everybody? You are now tuned into another episode of the Man Listen Show. But before we get started, let's hear a few words from our sponsor.
Are costly cable bills giving you the blues? Well, Magic Streams is your answer. Watch all of your favorite teams live in HD. You will also get access to over 1,500 movies and be able to watch TV shows instantly. Magic Streams. Click the link in our bio to get more information.
DD's at Nat. Flavor to your function. DD's Daiquiri. Good people, good vibe, one drink at a time. Good people, good vibe, one drink at a time. Flavor to your function. DD's Daiquiri. Good people, good vibe, one drink at a time. Good people, good vibe, one drink. Wanna kick back, wanna just vibe. Wanna kick back. Let me first slide to the drink store. Let me just buy DD drink mixes, all of them fire. Fill me up a case, I'm finna drop bread. Marvelous mango, classic and red. Took them to the party, these folks won't leave me alone. They wanted me to share, they better get their own. DD's at Nat. Flavor to your function. DD's Daiquiri. Good vibe, one at a time. Good vibe, one at a time.
Conversate with Us Radio presents the Man Listen Show. We are the blackest radio show on the internet. We bring you our opinion on topics that affect the Black community in an effort to enlighten, enrich, and empower every brother and sister that falls under the sound of our voice. We operate on a no-hating frequency, so be prepared for us to keep it 100% real and 100% Black all the time. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Man Listen Show. You can subscribe to the show on YouTube. You can listen to our past episodes on our website, www.manlistenshow.com. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on anywhere you listen to podcasts. Make sure you share the show and let everybody know about the blackest radio show on the internet, the Man Listen Show. I'm your host, Marv B. Let's bring the crew in. All right, y'all, we down one soldier, Rika, kicking it with the fam. Shout out to her. So we're just going to be the three of us. So we're going to talk about some sports. I got my two sports experts with me. So, Major League Baseball, they had their all-star game here recently. And the boy Mookie Betts, what's his name? Mookie Betts? Mookie Betts, real good baseball player, outstanding baseball player from the Los Angeles Dodgers. He wore a t-shirt that said, "We need more Black people included in baseball." And people have been discussing this. I know in a couple of social media groups that I'm in, talking about the number of American-born ADOS Black people who are playing baseball or the lack thereof. And this guy put out this shirt, making a plea. He put out this shirt more so making a plea to see more Black people involved in the sport. Do you think that we could possibly turn this trend around? Because, we grew up where Black people actually played the sport. Ricky Henderson, Saturday mornings, watching the Wizard, Ozzie Smith, doing his backflips and giving tips on how to play the game. We grew up with Black people playing baseball, but we also were part of that generation where you saw it trend towards football and basketball as well, and brothers stopped playing baseball as much. So what do you think? Do you think the steps that are being put into place to try to turn this around so that Black people can be more involved in baseball? And then I'm talking about Black people because there's a lot of Black faces, but Black people like us that was born in this country are going to be involved in the sport. What do you think?
It's a lot that goes into this as far as baseball specifically, compared to the other sports, because baseball, there is basketball. I can go out by myself and I can get better by myself. I can shoot. All I need is a ball. Football, I could You can play catch with one other person, I guess. You could work on drills and stuff, but baseball, you really need multiple people. So that's one thing. I grew up, we used to go to, it was a sand lot or a lot of empty lot behind our house. We used to, it'd be about 5 or 6 of us. We go and play baseball. You don't see that a lot anymore. And that brings to the second point, which is baseball is a lot more cost prohibitive than these other sports too, because gloves, $200, bats, $200, spikes, $200. It's just very expensive to play baseball. And if you want to get on outside of just regular rec league, you get onto a travel ball team, they're charging some $500-$600 a month. That's just to be on the squad, to have practices and things like that. And you got to travel every weekend. You say your team goes within 5-6 hour radius typically every weekend. So that's a whole nother aspect of it that we typically aren't in those circles of the people that do that.
That's what I was going to say too. I think a lot with baseball has a lot to do with, how much disposable income you have. Because like Lav said, it's much more expensive to play, baseball than there's any of those other sports. With basketball, typically, like you just need 1 or 2 basketballs to have, or even just one really, just to have practice. But really, you just need 1 basketball, and then you need some shoes. Everybody buys uniforms. They're typically, pretty cheap. Football is a little bit more expensive, but a lot of times the helmet and things like that is provided by the coaches. But with baseball, it's a little bit different, especially early on before you get old enough to get on one of those sponsored teams. And like Lav said, by the time you add up everything, you could be several hundreds, if not $1,000 into it before the season even starts. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I have a son who just got through, he's playing at a collegiate level now, but I don't think any of these sports are going to be for somebody who doesn't have wealth or the disposable income. My son played basketball, AAU basketball, 7-on-7 football. And in order to compete, unless you are freakishly athletically gifted, right, you have to get to a point where it's almost like an arms race. I'll say for basketball, you're paying for summer league, right? Lab talked about the travel. I remember those summers trying to think like, dang, how we gonna cover this? Because you got your basketball squad, you paying for your fees, so you pay for the tournaments, right? And the tournaments, once you get to a certain level, when you get to a competitive level, like because every year, the people get weeded out, right? People are like, nah, this ain't for me. I'm keep going. And say like, we lived in the Midwest or, this even in Texas, if you're having to travel to Louisiana, Chicago, Minnesota, Los Angeles, Vegas, the East Coast, and you pay for the tournaments, but you also got to pay for the travel. You got to pay for the plane tickets. You got to pay for, the hotel rooms. You got
time off work.
Time off from work. Feed yourself while you're there. You're taking young people there, so they're gonna want to see the different attractions and all that stuff that plays a part of it. And that's just playing for the summer. And then when you talk about paying for the school, because playing school ball isn't free, because you're having to raise money for that. And in order to keep your child able to compete, because everybody's trying to compete for that scholarship, right? You're paying trainers. You're paying somebody to train athletics. You're paying somebody to train for ball handling. You're paying somebody to train for the jump shot. You're paying somebody if you're on the football field or a receiver or whatever. It costs. It costs to be a part of this. And I think eventually Black people are going to be price cost out of these sports, except for those who are, physically gifted. So when you add the pieces y'all talking about with baseball, yeah, you can't just do it by yourself. You could get out with your dad or your big brother. Y'all can get some mitts and throw the ball back around. Y'all can maybe do some fielding drills or whatever. But I don't see many hidden batting cages in the neighborhood. I don't see them. They out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, they used to be, I grew up, Mississippi grew up in Topeka. There was a batting cage where you could get, if you really wanted to, you could get to, Boyle's Joyland. It wasn't that far. And you can, pay and you could hit balls at the batting cage. That ain't really just readily available anymore.
Right.
It's just not. But I also think, y'all, it's a marketing piece as well. I think
Right.
the NBA, NFL is king, right? When it comes to the sports, in terms of marketing, everybody loves the NFL. NBA is a very, very close second. I think the NBA is probably, when you look at the global reach and impact, I would say NBA is probably above the NFL globally.
Yeah.
Basketball is above them globally, maybe not here in the States, but they've done a brilliant job of marketing it to Black Americans, white Americans, everybody, right? What does baseball do to really market it to people like us? I don't think they do. I mean, now y'all more sports experts than me. I don't think they really market it to Black people.
No, they don't. And another thing baseball has is they have some weird rules when it comes to international players. That's why it's a lot of Dominicans and Venezuelans and stuff like that, as opposed to United States citizens when it comes to the draft. So you can sign a kid in Dominican Republic when he's 15 years old. He doesn't have to go through the draft process. You can just go down there and you can sign 100 kids, right? And you bring them to your academy and they stay at your academy. You sign them for $25,000, $50,000. To some of them, that's life-changing money for their families, right? And so they stay there on your academy. They practice all day. They give them school, all that stuff. And then if they pan out, that's fine. If not, you've wasted pennies on the dollar. Versus if you sign a kid out of high school in the United States, which if you're a U.S. citizen or from Canada, you're not eligible to get signed that way. You have to go through the draft, and you basically have your options. A lot of kids like a Kyler Murray, he got drafted in football and baseball, right? So in order to play baseball, Oakland Athletics was going to have to pay him a lot of money. And there's still no guarantee that he's going to pan out. Whereas you go down to the Dominican or some of these other Latin American countries, and you have the academy set up, and you pay pennies on the dollar. You sign 100 kids. If one of them pans out, then it's worth your money. And so that's why you see a lot of Latin players in MLB as opposed to Black Americans.
I think, was it Torrey Hunter had said that several years ago. And that's exactly what he said, that you can hire them, like you said, or sign them for pennies on the dollar. And what I think his exact words or something like, why take a Black kid from the South side of Chicago and you have to pay him millions when you can pay a fraction of that to, several kids down there. So you're right, that has a lot to do with it. But, even growing up, I played fast pitch softball from the age of 7 all the way up through high school. And there was the majority of the time, I was the only Black person on the team. And I mean, oftentimes, I would go through a whole tournament from Friday to Sunday and maybe see one or two other Black people. So I think, just years back, I think they just haven't really did a whole, just a great job of just marketing baseball and softball to us. And it's just not a lot of young kids that even want to play it. Like even when kids are 3 or 4, they grab a basketball, start dribbling it, they yelling out either Jordan or Kobe, or they grab a football and everybody wants to be, I don't know. I was going to say Patrick Mahomes, but there had been, other Black QBs before him. But I really don't, like you said, like Marv, you brought up like Ozzie Smith and people that we have, but after a certain time, it's like they just don't have anybody to look up to. And I just don't think the young kids even want to play baseball as much as, they did the generations before.
And I think it's a shame too, because baseball could be dope. We bring dopeness to whatever we're involved in. And, think about the 7th inning stretch where they say, take me out to the ballpark. You know how it'd be like if Black folks was like really kicking into play, but baseball's got all those weird rules and everyday unwritten rules and things of that nature. And I just think that it's really grown into a white man sport. I mean, Torrey Hunter, he was onto something. I mean, we talk about on the show all the time about how ADOS is being replaced, or they try to replace us or use the benefits that we have, that our ancestors fought for, right? You think about everybody, NBA, NFL. If it weren't for Kirk Flood, right, standing tall, there wouldn't be no free agency. There wouldn't be players, saying, hey, listen, I want to go play over here and get more money. Or they were just locked in. I got drafted by this team. This is who I play for, whether I'm miserable, happy, or not. And I mean, I don't know. I think if they try to market it more, I know that they are investing. I know that they see it as a problem. The notes that I saw right now, 7.2% of Major League Baseball is ADOS. 7.2%. And that's down from last year, which was 7.6%. I know that they're investing in a lot of baseball, like youth baseball initiatives or whatever, but I don't know if it's going to be enough, or if they're going to be able to turn it around with all the things that we talked about. And it's really a shame too, because you look at the NBA, LeBron, they just said LeBron's a billionaire, right? He's the first active player to be a billionaire. I just saw where this cat turned down Major League Baseball. He turned down like a $440 million contract.
Yeah.
$440 million, and he turned it down.
Yeah.
And you think about it, people give a lot of slack to the NBA because they're like, y'all got guaranteed contracts, unlike the NFL. Baseball is guaranteed as well.
It is.
And you ain't there putting as much wear and tear in your body playing baseball as you are playing basketball.
And there's no cap.
There's no cap.
Yeah, baseball is definitely where the real money is.
Man, yeah. So,
but I was thinking about too, when you first said that, this is the topic we were going to go towards. I thought about growing up. I don't know how old I was, but I just remember everybody kept saying baseball was America's favorite pastime. Like, I really thought that baseball was a sport that was watched most in America. And you're right when you said it was football. Then slowly as you get older, and I'm just like, no, I don't really think it's baseball anymore. So I feel like a lot of people, probably like the country people that are running baseball, are probably just a lot outdated and just like their views and their marketing and things like that. And so,
yeah, baseball has more. They're more old. They market the nostalgia more than the current day. So, people think of baseball and they think about going to the games with their dad or their granddad and eating popcorn and taking score in the scorebook and that kind of thing like that. And they revere these old school records. Nobody's ever going to be as good as such and such. He hit 345, and so there's all these different baseball just has a lot of catching up to do when it comes to marketing and then really just the way the sport is viewed, even on TV. I mean, it looks exactly the same as it did pretty much 70 years ago when they played baseball games on TV. The same angles, the same tired analogies that they're using for the announcers. They rarely, in the All-Star game, they'll try some different stuff, but rarely do they do anything outside the box. And they're hoping that they can just market on people's nostalgia for old school. That's why they wear old school unis. They have, they retire numbers and have statues where, they have old timers day at certain ballparks and stuff like that, just to get the old time feel back. And
well, I mean,
it ain't gonna work.
And I think it's pretty clear, no matter what they're trying to do, they really don't care about Black people. They don't. If you think about it, C talked about it being, America's favorite pastime. I grew up watching baseball. I played baseball because we played all the sports. I sucked at it. But I knew I played enough and to expose my son to it, he didn't hold his attention, right? But I remember watching the Royals with my grandma. You go to my grandma's house, watching the Royals play. That's what we did. I remember having family members who got drafted to go to the major leagues. Black people played baseball, and we were the best. When you talk about the Negro Leagues, we are from the KC area. The Negro League Baseball Museum. Hey, they took our talent, and then they all the stuff that we had with the Negro Leagues, they brought us in. You know, people talk about it. We talk about how desegregation, how that hurt Black people as well, right? We used to dominate baseball. We really used to. And I'll never forgive them for how they did Buck O'Neil. I'll never forgive them for how they did Buck O'Neil. Buck O'Neil was the epitome of class. They trotted him out there to, you know, talk about all the old Negro League baseball players, people who were dead, that they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. They waited till Buck O'Neil died before they put him into the Hall of Fame. I'll never forgive them for that. So I don't even really, I kind of think they know it's a problem, but I don't really think it's something that they really want to fix. And at this point, I don't know if it's something that can be fixed.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it's a easy fix because it requires a lot of capital. And I don't know that they have the appetite, the stomach for that kind of, you know, they can say they care all they want, but if you have a system, if there were half the players in the MLB were Black, would your bottom line be any different? Probably not, right? So they're like, what's the point of getting to that figure if at the end of the day we're still gonna make the same amount of money regardless of what the makeup of the team is, because it is such a regionalized sport at this point. If you're in Kansas City, you watch the Royals. If you're in Seattle, you watch the Mariners. If you're in Cleveland, you watch the Guardians, you know. But outside of that, if you're in somewhere that doesn't have a team, you're in Des Moines, Iowa, who do you watch? You know, so it's not, you know, like they have a minor league team up there, but who do you watch? So it's very regional, and people locally, they watch it because it's something to watch, regardless if they're good, the team is good or not. It's just background noise. So the makeup of the team really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that I don't know, man. I think Black people can make a difference. Like I said, I think Black folks could be dope. I mean, it can make it a dope experience. I mean, we do that to, you know, whatever we're involved in. But you know, more of us need to watch. And I think if we had more people to watch and support, I mean, some people got behind Barry, but you know, Barry was, you know, probably the best baseball player I've seen. You know, Ken Griffey Jr. is up there, but I'm gonna put Barry tops. But Barry and Ken, they weren't hip. I'll just put it that way. They didn't exude like, you know, what you see from like Kobe, LeBron, or any of the other NBA players or any of the NFL players who are able to, you know, get past the helmet and you can actually see their face and focus. So they weren't as relatable to many brothers and sisters, in my personal opinion. But you know, I think Black people need to watch, and we need to change that notion, because it is something that could be good for our community. But speaking of watching stuff, another comment that came up, and I want to see the weigh in on this. WNBA. So WNBA is playing this season, and you know, a lot of people have been talking about the inequity in pay, right, between the NBA and the WNBA. And that really came up because, you know, a lot of those players for the WNBA, they supplement their income by going to play overseas. And of course, you know, our sister Brittany Griner, she's being detained in Russia right now because she was going over to Russia to play, and allegedly, and I'll say allegedly because I don't trust them Russians, but allegedly she had some vape cartridges or some vape sticks that had some hashish material in it. And of course, if anybody knows anything about traveling abroad, you don't play with other people's countries when it comes to, you know, breaking their laws or whatever. And a lot of people were talking about how she wouldn't even have to go overseas to take that risk if she was making the money that they should be making in the US. But this comedian made a good point. It's harsh, but it was I don't know how you dispute it, and I'll leave it to you to respond to it. And he said, you know, the reason why the WNBA is always operating at a loss and the NBA is making so much more money and they're covering the WNBA is because women don't watch it. He said the WNBA games should be packed. They should be packed with feminists. They should be packed with young girls. They should be watching it. If they don't want to watch it, then who's really to blame? How do you two respond to that?
You know, I mean, that sounds, it's a cop out to me. To me personally, if you're associated with the WNBA, if you're associated with the NBA under that umbrella, then there shouldn't be an issue with how much you're getting paid. Now, granted, yeah, the TV ratings could be better, but if you're gonna be attached to that main entity that's making billions, then there should be no problem at all paying the women at least a decent salary to where they don't have to supplement their salaries. That's all I'm gonna say on it.
Now, of course, this came from a comedian. This didn't come from anybody from the NBA, because I think the NBA players have been more supportive of the players in the WNBA, as much as they can be, because those sisters in the WNBA, they put it on the line.
Yeah.
LeBron and them, they wore the t-shirts. LeBron speaks out. Some of the other players speak out, but those sisters in the WNBA, they constantly put it on the line, talking about being activists, talking about things that are affecting the Black community, but they aren't being paid. And if I'll be honest with you, it made me think, why don't more women support it? Because I've watched some college women's basketball, right? And it's actually better basketball than men's basketball if you really like the game. I mean, if you're only focused on, the sport being played above the rim and the athleticism, then yeah, NBA, there's no way they're going to match it, right? But if you love the game of basketball, it is good basketball, but people just aren't supporting it. And those are our sisters. So, I mean, see, what's your response?
Well, I mean, it's a sore subject for me. So, I mean, it kind of goes way back to high school. The country just does not support women's sports. I mean, the worst feeling in the world is every Friday night when you are suiting up playing a basketball game, high school basketball game, hardly nobody in the stands but your parents, your friends, a few homegirls, the cheerleaders, and then all of a sudden it comes towards the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, then all of a sudden the stands are packed waiting for the boys game. So that starts with, way before we get to the WNBA. Same way with college. I mean, getting a KU basketball ticket for men's basketball is absolutely crazy. Getting a women's ticket, a good seat, you can probably walk up right before the game starts and you'll be fine. So I just think that just people in general just don't support women's sports. But I think that's something that we got to change and we got to do, like, starting out early. So at my son's high school in Kansas City, one of the things they used to do, which they're known for filling the stands and having a youth spirit section, they would let all the kids in free and they would buy them food and things like that. But the stipulations were they had to be there prior to the girls' game. So those girls got to play in front of so many fans that, I mean, I probably maybe 5% of, high school basketball players in the country probably play with that many fans every single game. And so I think that's just the difference. But Lab has a great point, though. If they're the WNBA and the NBA are supposed to be one organization, then some of the funds from the NBA should also fund, something going into the WNBA. Do I think that they should make maybe as much? I mean, I'm not a feminist, I would want them to, but I'm a realist and I know that's not going to happen just because they're not bringing in any of the revenue. Like, they can't, truly pay out more than what they're bringing in, then they're just going to end up canceling the league. And then all of our women are going to have to go back to playing overseas full time and we wouldn't have a league at all. But I do think there's definitely something that could be done better. And as far as Brittany, I just wanted to say too, supposedly she didn't have, the amount to be arrested for anyway. I think with her, I think it was just bad timing. I don't know that for sure, but that's just what I heard. I mean, she had been going back over there for years. You can't make me believe this is the first time she did that. I think this is just the first time that little nut over there was upset because of the way America tackled, him invading Ukraine. So she's just a pawn right now. That's all it is. It's unfortunate, but I really don't think she did anything wrong or differently she did the last 4 years she went over there.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that it's a risk. It is an unnecessary risk to fly over there with, any type of illegal substance. But I agree.
But I thought they said it was legal over there. I thought the amount she had was legal.
Wow.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
I heard him say something like that too. It was such a small amount she shouldn't even been arrested.
Yeah, it was something on
by
ESPN.
their laws. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not. Both of y'all saying that I understand, and you're right. See, she is being held as a pawn, right? And I just don't trust those Russians. We talked about it before when they talked about Russia invading the Ukraine, and people talking about, oh, let's support the Ukraine or whatever. And you remember I said it on the show. You mean to tell me I'm supposed to be crying tears over some racist white folks in Russia fighting with some racist white folks?
Right, exactly.
Because
exactly.
them Russians are super duper racist. I mean, don't nobody get more racist than the racist white folks we deal with in this country. But them Russians, yeah, they not loving us. They don't have no love for us. So I agree with y'all. I don't believe that she really. I don't even really believe she had anything. I think it's all a farce, But I get sick of those black people. And I know a lot of people got mad at me because I said on my page, people who were trying to wave their finger like, "Wait, you need to know." She should have known the law, and she should have did this, and she should have did that. Man, shut the hell up, man. Don't nobody want to hear all that. Don't nobody want to hear all that, man. That girl, if it was your child, that was over there, we got plenty of time. It's just like when your kid gets in trouble, right? He has young adults, teenagers like me. When your child gets in trouble, you handle it. Then once you get them home and you safe, you get in that ass, right? It's the same thing with this situation. We need to get this sister home. And we the only people that do that. We the only people that do that. I remember when those dudes, what was his name? Ryan Lochte, when they had the Olympics down in Brazil and they got jumped on by the Brazilian people. And they was like, oh, these kids, they jumped on these kids. First of all, they was grown men.
He was 29.
They was grown men. So they was like, all these kids. And then when the video came out, when the Brazilians brought the video out, they said they was up there vandalizing and acting crazy. White folks still didn't say anything. They was just like, oh no, we're gonna protect ours, right? Why black people don't do that? We so quick to just be like,
hey man,
like we're gonna get some props from white folks for putting down one of our own. Get that girl home, man. Get that girl home as best as we can.
It's two ways to look at it like that. You say people trying to get props from white folks. At the same token, I don't want to be judged by white people's standards, so I don't want to do what they do. I don't want to be like, oh, we need to be like the white people do when they do. I don't want to be judged by that same standard. But I understand what you're saying.
I understand that. I get what you're saying when you say that, but we all we got.
No. That's what I say. That's what I say. It's two sides. I understand.
We all we got, and this is a zero-sum game, and we the only ones that concede losses all the time.
And you were talking about people be like, oh, she should have obeyed the law. They just had that cop in Baltimore in the US who went back and said, yeah, I planted drugs on all these people. I did, so knowing the law doesn't do you any good. If they out to some nefarious stuff, which we know Russians are prone to, especially when it comes to Black Americans, then it ain't gonna matter if she knew the law or not.
Yeah. Well, I really hope we can get that sister home. I mean, it's not really much we can do. I know people were talking about negotiating, and they were saying that I guess we got some Russian war criminals and maybe doing a swap or whatever. I seriously doubt that's gonna happen. I seriously doubt they'll swap Brittany for some known war criminal or something like that. But
they got a couple of US people. They said they're gonna have to give it's like 3 US citizens Russia got that they had to give us in order to get that war criminal in return.
Man, where's Jesse? That's how Jesse is sick. You know what I'm saying? Because Jesse would have been on the plane. Jesse Jackson, he'd have been on the plane and got it back.
Hey, speaking of which, Jesse was at the WNBA All-Star game, no?
Was he?
Yep. It was in Chicago. He was there. Yeah.
How was he looking?
He did. He looked, I mean, he's getting old, but I mean, he didn't look like sick. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's getting older every year, like we all are. But he didn't look like sickly or anything. But yeah, I mean, he looked like an old man.
Man, the last time I saw Jesse on TV, he It was when they convicted that racist cop in Minnesota. What's his name? Derek Chauvin or Chavin, however you say his name. And it was Ben Crump and all the attorneys. And Jesse was standing. It was a group of people, right? And number one was like, that was like the height of the pandemic, right? And so they was all out there. They was unmasked and all that mess. And Jesse was standing there. You could tell he was just unfirm. Because like I was watching it, and then you could see, you know how like, you know, when somebody gets older, like your grandparent or elder gets, you know, and they're not steady on their feet. Jesse was standing there, and then just all of a sudden he was just, you know, just like lost his balance. And that happened like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, dude, why do they got Jesse up there? Now that may have been Jesse doing that, because you know Jesse liked the camera. Jesse didn't always like the camera. But it was just, you know, if you said he was there and he was looking okay, that's a good thing. But he was looking bad a couple of years ago without that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, how old is Jesse? Probably 80.
I'd be in his 80s.
Yeah. I was just like 80 something, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he gotta be in his 80s.
I mean, hey, you know, you can't look too well. And I mean, that ain't gonna sound right. But you know, you get in your 80s. I mean, you know, it's a different standard of looking well, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, shout out to the boy Mookie Betts, you know, for bringing that attention. I hope, you know, things change. Like I said, baseball, hey, if we could get some of our boys to play that, you talk about wealth and making a difference. You know, that's one of the ways to do it. And, you know, shout out to Brittany Griner. I mean, I hope we can get that sister home soon. And to the, you know, the women that play in the WNBA, yes, I do believe that you should be paid more. And, you know, the reason why is because you put it on the line. They put it on the line for Black people all the time. They put their career at risk. And I definitely feel like they are deserving of more, not just from the NBA, but also from us as fans. We need to do better by them as well.
WNBA flip Georgia.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So, you know, hey, they deserve more. So, you know, I think we talked about it enough. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at manlistenshow. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Leave a comment. What do you think? How do we get Black people in baseball? What do you think? Is the WNBA, are they being treated fairly? What can we do to make sure that there's more equity in pay for the sisters in the WNBA? And just let us know what you think about the show. Share the show with everybody. Let everybody know about the Blackest Radio Show on the internet, the Man Listen Show. My name is Marv B, and I'll holler at you. Peace. What up, Erika?